Hey guys, it's Josh from Cardfight Empire here today, bringing you a brand new video series. I guess I could qualify it as a video series. It's basically just a series that is going to follow kind of me reviewing the decks that win in the $500 tournament, since we're trying to make that bigger to be like a 1K or a 2K maybe eventually. So for those of you wondering, I know a lot of you asked me about it. The last $500 tournament went really well. We had quite a few people show up, and as far as everything ran smoothly. Um, but yeah, as far as like the tops, I'm gonna go over them right now for you guys. So that's gonna be something that I do from now on. Is that every time we have a big tournament, I'm going to, after that, review all the decks and stuff like that. So um, yeah, it was pretty interesting. It's like set 13. It happened on December 30th. I know a lot of you saw the video about it. You were just kind of like on the fence about it because you're like, if I show up, like how many people are going to be there? Like, and a lot of you were worried about like pricing and all that stuff. But it went really well, even with just the Georgia people there and a couple other people from out of town, I think. So definitely in the future, if we can have like more and more and more people coming, that would be great. Um, but yeah, it went really well for those of you wondering. But yeah, without further ado, I'm gonna go over kind of some of the deck lists that topped and the players that played them. Um, the first place was Kusha. I'm not gonna pronounce his last name because I'll probably butcher it, and I don't want to do that. So Kusha got first place. He's from Georgia. And he played a deck called Hydrophobic, which was an Aquaforce Thavis deck, as you guys can see. So here's the deck list. As I was looking at it, the things that you could see that were a little bit interesting, he did run the Thavis stand trigger, where most builds do not. Um, he kind of just told me that that was for if he has all grade zeros in his hand, he would prefer to have a chance to have some attackers that he can do something with, which is totally understandable. He does also run one extra draw trigger. Usually, Thavis runs 4 draw triggers for the most part, so that's pretty interesting. And he also runs one Battle Siren Chloris instead of like 2. So he said that it's very it's very bad in any control matchup pretty much because they can get rid of it. So he only runs one for, you know, it just happening to be there. Other than that, his list is pretty standard. He does run more of the original Thavis than the new Thavis, which is interesting because he focuses more on riding this one, and I guess maybe calling this one a rear guard. That's what it looks like. As for his G-Zone, he had the typical lineup. He does run the GB8, which is interesting, and he ran 6 G-Guardians, which is interesting as well. But yeah, this was the deck that Kusha played to get top in, and so he got first place. He did a pretty good job, and yeah, we're gonna be moving to the next deck now. Sorry, this is a little awkward. This is the first time I'm doing this, so I don't really have like a grip on how I want to do this yet. So I just kind of jumped straight into it. But second place was Antonio Tutt, aka Crow's Link Joker deck, called Too Sweet Delete. So he was playing deleters. Something pretty interesting to always see in deleters is like how many starters they run in grade 3s and their trigger lineup. So Crow, I know, is borrowing someone else's deck. I'm not sure if he built this deck himself from their cards or if he was borrowing it straight deck for deck. Or straight deck list for deck list, I should say. But he did run 4 starter, 4 of the Zuij starter, which is, you know, it's kind of standard in the Japanese list, so it's like, you know, it's not that interesting. It is interesting that he ran 6 crit, because in Japan they run mostly stand triggers. But yeah, he did run 6 of the crit. He's 6 Jiva, or sorry, 4 Jivas and 2 Ulks. So then he ran 4 FOMs and 2 Eddies. So for a total of 6 stand and 6 crit and 4 heal. That's pretty interesting. Also, another interesting thing is he just ran 4 grade 3s. I feel like that would be... I feel like you wouldn't get into your grade 3 a lot, or you would have to G-assist with it, which I know the person that owned this deck was playing it last night at our locals, and he got grade locked quite a few times. So, I maybe wouldn't have gone with 4 grade 3s, but, you know, everyone has their own personal preference. He's also running Gunnek, which I opt for something else for Gunnek, except for Gunnek and Drown. But they like Gunnek and Drown, I think, because it draws them cards. So, yeah. Other than that, there's not much to say about it. It's pretty simple. They do run 2 Amnesties and a Excelix, which I found pretty interesting. I guess against the Link Joker matchup, they would rather just Amnesty once and then Excelix the next turn, so that they can maybe retire things that are locked on their opponent's field, or maybe just give plus 3k to their cards. I'm not really sure. That's an interesting thing to see in a deleter deck. But they do run 1 Lacus Karina, 4 of the delete G-Guard, and then 2 Destiny Guardian. So yeah, they got 2nd place. Not a bad deck at all. 3rd was one of my decks. Death Star Vader it was piloted by WT, as we call him, or his full name is William Lattimore. We actually decided to switch decks for this event, so he ended up using my Chaos deck, and I ended up using his Murakumo cards to build my own build of Murakumo, and I played that in this tournament. But he got 3rd place with my exact build of Star Vaders. So this build might look weird to a lot of people, but there's like kind of a lot of things to explain about it. Like, I don't really have that much time to explain like why I ran everything I did. Like, I do run 3 of the legions because I don't like decking out, and there's a way to infinite loop legion with this deck, so it's never really a problem. Yeah, it's never really a problem to do the infinite loop legion with this deck. So yeah, I run 6 crit, 6 draw, obviously to keep up with the game and what is going on. I do run 4 Lacus Karina, which like sometimes, I don't know, sometimes it just is very inconsistent because it's not a Star Vader, so sometimes you damage tech these and you want to use the Counterblast as a Star Vader Counterblast, but you just can't because it's not a Star Vader. So I have considered taking these out, also because I only run 1 Lacus Karina G-Guard. So the skill of the regular Karina only goes off when you G-Guard into Lacus Karina. So yeah, I might switch that soon, but other than that, to my knowledge, the build went pretty well for WT. I do run Abolition Star Vader Neodynam because it goes pretty well when you have to ride the Legion or when you're on the Legion in the late game. I do only run 2 Zinks because I don't think that 4 is necessary. Every time I run like more than 2, I always soul charge them off of the other Zink skills, so I'm just like, why even run it? Like, I might as well run something else. So I run 1 Metonax and 1 Volt Line. Volt Line for the early game if we're pre-G break and we're playing that game, or a Metonax when we're in the G break game already. 4 Photons, 4 Strange Dragon, and 3 Colony Maker. Colony Maker gets me to my wide range of grade 1s that I have to pick from. And we run 1 Globe because Globe just helps with numbers. And extra locks when you go into like Glue Ball or anything else pretty much. G-Zone's pretty standard, 4 Chaos, Universe, 4 or 2 Deluge, and then 4 Glue Ball, 1 GV8, 1 Lacus Karina, 2 Destiny Guardian, and 2 Death Legion. A lot of people don't like this card as much as I do, but I love this card. It just helps you draw a lot of cards and during your opponent's turn, and sometimes it even saves you. And gets you out of a rough situation. 4th place was Mr. Kyle McCrary's Dark Irregular deck. He called it Dust. This is pretty interesting. It's like a Sharat Vampire build. It's pretty interesting that he used Spade Jack of Nightmareland as a starter instead of the one that draws you two. But other than that, I don't see anything super interesting. He did run 3 PGs instead of 4, and he runs 6 grade 3s, which I find pretty interesting. His G zone is also not that interesting, except for the fact that he runs 2 Lujaris, which is usually the first stride, and then they usually just go into like Brattermouth or Goderize or something stronger, or it's like Steeped in Sin from there. But he actually runs 2 of them, so I guess maybe sometimes he goes into it twice. And it was also very weird how he ran 3 G-Flip Guardians, in my opinion, seeing as though he can only use this skill twice. So I don't know, it's kind of awkward. Maybe it was all that he had or something like that. I don't really know the situation, but he did run 3 G-Flip Guardians. So, but yeah, pretty standard. Moving on to the next build, we have Mr. Matthew Ann and his Kagero deck. He actually got 5th place, and I got 6th place, and we both like scrubbed out to our matchups, I guess. He played against Kyle with Dark Irregulars, and apparently that match went like really luckily in Kyle's favor. And I wasn't there to watch it, but I was doing something else. But yeah, apparently that's what happened with that. I'm unsure. I only know what I'm told by other people. So I know that my match I played against Kusha in top 8, and the Murakumo deck just cannot beat Aquaforce when they have the pieces that they need. So we played a 2 out of 3, and I legit just got 2-0'd. Like, cannot fight that deck. I mean, I guess granted the first game I rode Ikaku, so it was meh. Like, anyways, I need to ride Yasui in that matchup. But yeah, this is Matthew's deck. He did run 7 crit, 5 draw. I could say pretty standard for Overlord, but it like the Overlord trigger lineup like always changes like from player to player, so this could be standard. 7 crit, 5 draw, and he doesn't run the stand trigger, which is pretty interesting. The rest of his lineup is pretty standard. It is interesting here they ran 3 the end and 2 the X instead of going 3X and 2 end. I did hear that he rode the end against someone and like maybe double the end stand on them like in the early game, so in combination with like Conroe and stuff like that, so that's pretty funny. That's probably why he runs 3 end. And then his G zone's pretty standard. He does run the GB8, which some builds don't run. And then he has 6 G Guardians, which I feel like is a lot. But it did the job for him throughout the day. So he's able to run 3 Denial Griffins, get an Advanced Guard in there, and a Defeat Flare, and an Absalom. So I'm guessing he opted to run 6 because of his range of options, and because he probably wanted to run 3 Denial Griffin. So yeah, so this is the Murakumo build that I built using WT's cards. I literally built it like right before the tournament. I played it the day before as well, and I was like kind of tweaking it. So it was like my first time playing the deck in real life. So I was just figuring out stuff and combos as I went along. But I decided to run 2 starters, Minosuke, because it's a great counter charge engine. It's a really good card. I ran 6 crit and 6 draw. My crit Masamura goes to the soul, and my Shirasagi goes to the soul, which helps a lot with the running 2 Shibaraku Buster. Just having that card requires a lot of cards that can go to the soul somehow. Also, you have Yashibiyashi that costs soul, so yeah, pretty standard. Besides that, like, I did have Simbis, 4 Simbis and 3 Ikakus, which was really funny because I ended up playing against Aaron, one of the other top 8 people earlier in the rounds, in the Swiss rounds, and he locked like nearly my entire board with Chaos Breaker, and I just used Simbi to unlock draw 2, and then I used Simbi, unlock draw 2, Simbi, unlock draw 2, and then I played 2 Ikakus, and suddenly I had a full board that was unlocked. So I feel like this deck has a really good matchup against any Link Joker deck. These limit break enablers here, you guys might be looking at like, what the hell is that? This is actually Tamba. the promo card for Murakumo. They just didn't have it on this site, so I couldn't put it in. But this is Tomba. I think it's Stealth Dragon of Concealment Tomba or something like that. It's a Shadow Stitch card that's like pink. You guys probably know what I'm talking about. It's a tournament promo. Other than that, my grade 2s are pretty standard. Grade 3s are pretty standard as well. My G-Zone, I did run 4 Yasui Gemma, which is pretty standard, but I actually go into it for my first stride, like every time. I don't actually run a legit first stride in this deck, and I don't think Murakumo has one, so I just go into Yasui Gemma as my first stride all the time, which makes me prefer to ride Ubushi in my grade 2 turn, because when I Soul Blast out for Yasui Gemma, I want to have Ubushi in the drop zone so that I can get one. So yeah, it's very useful. Also having these on the field against Link Joker, especially Chaos Breaker, just makes them think twice about doing anything, because they can't use Crisis Skill because you would choose who the lock is. So you can always choose Ibushi, and then you can put back 2 lock units and literally get 2 Ibushi. So it's a very hard matchup for Aaron. Like, it's very against his favor. But I did run 2 Yasui Tenma for the loop with Tomba and Yasui Tenma when they get to 5 damage. Like, it's just way too strong to not have in there. 2 Shibaraku Busters, like, just gets you drive checks. I did Drachma someone just once, but Drachma is just pretty much there as a contingency. In the Murakumo deck, like, it's very easy to Drachma as well, because you will always have a Yasui in your hand from, like, the stride skill and doing your shenanigans. I did run one of the GB8. I killed someone twice with the GB8. It's just very, very strong. It allows you to place your rear guards on the Vanguard circle if you're done attacking with it and it didn't hit. So you can attack with this, and then, like, let's say you call 2 Yasuis to the rear guard circle, you can attack with this, which is a better play than what they used to have, because they have units that can attack from the back row. So what you'll do is you'll play these in the back row, you'll GB8 them, and then you'll attack with your GB8, then stack all the triggers on 1 Yasui, and then when it moves to Vanguard Circle, it retains all the trigger effects and stuff, so you can attack them with that, and then if that Yasui doesn't hit, you can move the other Yasui to Vanguard Circle and attack. It's pretty strong, and then you have these afterwards to be 16Ks in the back row, and if they're at 5 damage, like, it's very hard to survive. So then I had a Sabreeze and 5 G Guardians. I feel like this is pretty standard. If you guys have any questions for any of the builds, you can just comment on the video, and I will try my best to answer the question or get you to the person that can answer your question about their deck. So this is Aaron's deck, as I was just discussing. I fought him earlier in the rounds. He got 7th place, and he's running Chaos, pretty standard. He's running like the Jap build that has like 4 Photon, 4 Globe, and 4 Melepton. He also runs 1 Metanax and 1 Volt Line, just like me. He runs 4 Zinc, which I was discussing that I don't like, but maybe it works out better for him. He has Carbon as a starter. I have Plank Draco Kid. I forgot to discuss that, but Carbon works better when you have a full Chaos Breaker deck. So he does have a full Chaos Breaker, like, grade 3 lineup, which I do not. So he runs Carbon, and I run Plank Draco Kid, so I can get to mine to make sure I always ride it first. He runs 6 Grit, 6 Straw, just the same. And his G-Zone is pretty much the exact same as mine, except he runs 1 Ractome instead of a 2nd Deslegion. So yeah, it worked out pretty well for him. Obviously, he made top 8, so it had to be doing like somewhat well for him during the day. And our 8th place player, Mr. Marcellus Perkins. This is a pretty interesting. He topped with Kagero, but it's like an extremely interesting build of Overlord. Like, there's a lot of things in here that I usually don't see run in the new Overlord. He has Red Pulse Draco Kid as his starter, which is pretty interesting because he's not running Conroe. I think that Conroe is a stronger starter, but maybe this just works for him personally, which I could understand. It searches a grade 3, like top 5. And then there's just the possibility of you whiffing it, but you'll never whiff Conroe, so it's just like, he did run 4 crit and 8 stand, so that's pretty interesting. He had Vieira, which I'm not sure if he used Vieira offensively or defensively, but Vieira, when one of your opponent's rear guards is retired from an effect, you can choose one of your other units and it gets 10,000, and then you can shuffle this unit back into your deck. So it kind of works like Vanguard, Gearcat, and Gear Chronicle, where if he just uses Denial Griffin, he can give 10k to his Vanguard, and then it's 10k for the rest of the turn. So that could have been pretty good for him throughout the day. I personally didn't talk to him to see if it was, because I'm just now seeing this build as I put it in for this video. So he ran 4 stand triggers, 4 Inspire Yell, 4 Vieira for a total of 8 stand triggers. He did run 3 Lava Flow, which I find is interesting in an Overlord deck, and 2 Doombringer High Flame. Usually people run 4 of these and like 1 of these, I see. And then usually they run Protect Orbs, but he ran Flare Trooper Doomjid. And then usually people run 4 Conroe, but he ran for 3 Conroe and 2 Athonic, which is pretty interesting. He had 2 Glow Heater Dragon, usually this is a 4 of, and 3 Berserk Lord, so he made some room in the build. Like seems like he took out like 2 Glow Heaters and 1 Evolute or 1 Nihalem for 3 Berserk Lord. Maybe he really liked it throughout the day. It keeps your opponent pretty controlled so that they never have a full board, which helps you Ziegenberg and stuff like that. He did run 4 Destiny and 4 Legend, like pretty standard if you're just running that build. It's either the Legend or the X, like Matthew did. So he actually runs 3 Titan, which I find really interesting, because Titan just completely left this build when this build starts topping. So maybe it puts in some work for him, does some things. He does run 3 Ziegenberg. I can imagine with like the Berserk Lords and the Vieiras, like it can really help him maybe when he Ziegenbergs. He can give 10k to Ziegenberg for the whole turn and double attack. And then he runs a 3 Purge, 2 Ace, 1 Extend Dragon, and then 4 G Guardians as opposed to Matthew's 6. So I think that he's running too little G Guardians, and I think Matthew's running too many G Guardians. But either way, it's player preference. It's kind of like just completely what works for the player, and obviously it somewhat worked for him because he made top 8. So yeah, can't really knock it until you try it, and then even then can't really knock it because they still topped with it. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. That was just kind of my quick going over the decks that topped. As far as the next $500 tournament, I will be making an announcement on when that is. It might be a team tournament, considering that we're heading into the season of Springfest, which is where we're going to have a team tournament in Atlanta this year. So the next tournament might be a team tournament. I'll keep you guys posted on that. Don't count on that completely because it still might be a singles tournament, but I definitely want you guys to try to come out if you can. I love seeing you guys' faces and making the tournament scene and the Georgia scene just a lot bigger, even though it's already big. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. This has been Josh from Cardfight Empire. If you enjoyed the video, please like, comment, subscribe, and leave a comment down below if you had a question about any of the decks or anything. I can just reach out to the players and ask them for you and get back to you. So yeah, please leave a comment if you have a question about any deck or you want to tell any of the players something. Also, please check out our social medias, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and if you want to, you can support us on Patreon. Really helps a lot. All the links for that is down in the description below. But yeah, with that being said, this has been Josh from Cardfight Empire, and I'll see you guys on the next video.